Guest characters have become such a staple of the fighting game genre that when new releases like Tekken 8 come out, one of the first questions on everybody's minds is who will be our first fighter from another franchise. I've seen a ton of videos covering guest characters in different fighting games, but I wanted to look in the opposite direction. So in this video, we're going to be looking at times fighting game characters left the genre to show up in another franchise. Note that every game I cover in this video is on either Steam or the Epic Games Store, so if you want to try them out, they are readily available. Before we get into the list, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. I do combo guides, character and costume showcases, and other trivia videos just like this one. And there's a ton of new content coming to fighting games over the next few months, so make sure you subscribe to the channel to not miss out on anything. The first fighting game series we're going to be looking at is the godfather of the genre itself, Street Fighter. Although Street Fighter is the most iconic fighting game series, it actually hasn't received many guest characters. This, however, has not stopped Street Fighter from showing up in other games. The game we're looking at that features Street Fighter characters is Exoprimal. Exoprimal is an online-only third-person shooter game developed by Capcom, and no one has as many collaborations as Capcom games with other Capcom games.
I'll show you. Behold your future. I shall present your prophecy. Cloudy with a chance of Soulstorm.
In Exoprimal, you can unlock costumes for your exosuits that make them look like robotic versions of Street Fighter characters. Namely, the collaboration costumes represent Ryu, Chun-Li, and Guile. Each crossover costume is actually for a specific exosuit. For example, the Chun-Li skin is for the sniper. I actually had a lot of fun messing around with this exosuit in particular. It lets you get a lot of high damage out from a range while having the drawback of very low health. Guile's suit, on the other hand, is more nimble and focuses on close range combat. This seems a little backwards to me, considering Guile is the long-range character in Street Fighter and Chun-Li is normally rushdown based. However, the Ryu skin is for the default balanced exosuit that you get when you start the game, which is pretty fitting. You do have to purchase the Chun-Li and Guile skins as DLC, but the Ryu skin is earnable in-game and it's pretty easy to get. I'm hoping they add a Zangief skin for one of the tank suits in the future. And I think a Cammy skin would be really cool for the Nimbus suit, especially considering Cammy had a costume with roller skates in Street Fighter V. Also, I think it'd be really cool if Street Fighter 6 got some costumes for these characters that look like the original exosuits that the skins are for, kind of like the mech costumes that Street Fighter V had.
Where do you want me to break you first?
The next fighting game series we're going to be looking at is the king of the 3D fighters, Tekken. What's interesting is that the character from Tekken that featured in the game I'm going to mention isn't one of the faces of the franchise like Jin, Kazuya, or Heihachi. Instead, it was actually Lars from Tekken 6 who appeared in Naruto Ninja Storm 2. And before anybody leaves a comment, I'm sorry, but I do not consider the Naruto Ninja Storm games as fighting games. I played a lot of the Naruto Ninja Storm series growing up, and while not the most complex games, they are a really fun way to experience the story and play as your favorite characters. But the best playable character to appear in the Ninja Storm games was Lars Alexanderson. The outfit Lars appears in the game was actually in Tekken 6 and was designed by the creator of Naruto. And in my opinion, if Lars is to get a costume in the Tekken 8 store, it should be this one. His combos and jutsus are based off his most iconic moves in Tekken. And he got one of the sickest ultimate jutsus in the game. They also gave him a gun. Now moving on to Bandai's other fighting game, Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur is notorious for being the guest character fighting game. The series has had a guest character in almost every entry since Soul Calibur 2, which came out in the early 2000s. In the latest installment, Soul Calibur 6, you can play as Geralt from the Witcher series or even 2B from Nier Automata. But a lot rarer than a guest showing up in Soul Calibur is a Soul Calibur character appearing in another franchise. One of Soul Calibur's most iconic characters, Sophitia, did actually show up in another game series that is not a fighting game. The game in particular is Warriors Orochi 3 Ultimate. The Warriors Orochi series is a crossover between the Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors games, so if you've ever played one of the games from those series or one of the spin-offs like Hyrule Warriors or Fire Emblem Warriors, you probably know how these games play. You choose a character with a unique moveset featuring different combos and supers and go around a giant map fighting literally thousands of enemies to complete different objectives. Warriors Orochi 3 in particular had Sophitia as an unlockable playable character. She fits right into the aesthetic and gameplay of the game, as a lot of the roster is from the same time period that Soul Calibur is loosely based around. She has a completely unique moveset from the rest of the roster, featuring her moves from the Soul Calibur series. She has a really cool super, and can team up with other characters in the game. The game also features everybody's favorite ninjas, Kazumi and Ayane. They both have really cool new designs and supers. This leads us into the next fighting game series, Dead or Alive. The Dead or Alive series is one of my personal favorites and has some of the most iconic characters in the genre. In my opinion, the Dead or Alive games have the smoothest movement and combo systems out of any 3D fighter, and are the easiest fighting games for a new player to jump into and look like they're doing something cool. Sadly, the series has a stigma of being too fanservice-y, which often overshadows the actual game mechanics, and this means that when a game features a Dead or Alive character, it's usually not the type of game I want to play. But for the sake of a complete list, I present you Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash. Dead or Alive 5 actually had a collaboration with the Senran Kagura franchise in the past, featuring cosmetics with costume damage and all, so it does make sense that the collaboration goes both ways. Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash is a third-person shooter kind of like the Splatoon games, not in the sense of objectives, as most of the game is practically team deathmatch, but more that every weapon's ammo and your movement abilities both depend on a refillable resource, in this case water. The main story features every school competing in a water gun competition, but in free play mode or when replaying any of the story missions, you can play as any character on the roster, including our 3 DLC guest characters from the Dead or Alive series. Available as additional purchases are the characters Ayane, Honoka, and Marie Rose. And you also get Kazumi's outfit, which any character can wear. The game honestly has some good shooting and movement mechanics, but there's definitely way too much fan service for me to take it seriously. This brings us to our final fighting game, which, surprise, is actually Street Fighter again. As much as we've already talked about Street Fighter, this final collaboration had way too much of an impact to not talk about. I'm of course referring to when Street Fighter came to Fortnite. At the time, this collaboration blindsided everybody and had some of the biggest fighting game YouTubers making some peak content. They also gave some of the characters alternate outfits that aren't even in Street Fighter 6. Regardless of your thoughts on Fortnite, you have to admit that seeing Blanca in a suit doing this makes it all worth it. For better or worse, Street Fighter showing up in Fortnite is probably the most iconic example of fighting game characters showing up in another genre. That about wraps up our list, so thanks so much for watching. There are a lot of other iconic fighting game series that I didn't cover in this video, and I only showed games that are available on either Steam or the Epic Games Store. So if this video gets 500 likes, I'll make a follow-up that covers some other fighting game series that may have appeared in some more obscure games. And if you know any other times a fighting game character showed up outside the genre, make sure you let me know in the comments. Thanks again so much for watching, please leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more fighting game content.